She walked into the small-town cafe with quiet steps, her hair pulled low across her face as if it were a curtain meant to shield her from the world. People noticed her the moment she entered, not because of her smile, which was soft but hesitant, but because of the faint scars running along her neck and arms. Whispers started, the kind that cut sharper than any blade, little laughs tucked behind coffee cups, eyes that judged before they ever knew her name. To them, she was just a scarred woman hiding in plain sight. But what none of them knew was that behind those marks lay a story that could silence a whole room in seconds. And on this day, one man would step forward, and everything would change. Stay with me, because this story isn't about scars. It's about the kind of strength that can only be carved by fire. She chose a quiet table by the window, hands trembling slightly as she set down her worn leather bag. It wasn't fear of being alone. She'd grown used to that. But the weight of constant stares made even the smallest act of existing feel exhausting. She tried to focus on the sunlight spilling across the floorboards, tried to imagine she was invisible. But laughter from a nearby group of college kids broke her fragile shield. One of them, bold with the ignorance of youth, whispered loud enough for others to hear. "Look, it's like she wrestled with barbed wire and lost." The table erupted in giggles. She pressed her lips together, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. But inside, her heart ached. She wanted to vanish. She wanted to scream. She wanted anyone to see her as more than the scars, and yet she sat still, holding her breath like a secret. Don't look away now, because what happens next will remind you that true recognition can come when you least expect it. At the counter stood an older man, shoulders broad, posture stiff in a way that revealed years of discipline. His hair was grayed at the temples, and his eyes carried the kind of heaviness only soldiers know. He wasn't watching the crowd, nor the young ones laughing, but the woman by the window. His gaze had locked on something others hadn't noticed. When she reached for her coffee, her sleeve slipped back just enough to reveal a faded tattoo on her forearm. A simple number, an insignia worn down by time and skin that had seen fire. His breath caught in his throat. That wasn't just ink. That was a unit tattoo. His unit. The veteran's coffee sat untouched as memories rushed in. Dusty deserts, the sound of explosions, the faces of comrades who never came home. He remembered the nights they all sat under the stars, swearing they would protect each other, no matter what. And he remembered her, not her scars, but her. She had been there. He had seen her when everything was falling apart. And now, here she was, alive, sitting quietly while strangers mocked her for the very marks that told of battles most people could never imagine. The laughter in the cafe suddenly felt like knives in his ears. He couldn't stay silent, because silence, he knew, was the cruelest betrayal. Don't blink now, because in the next heartbeat, silence turns into truth. He walked toward her table, the sound of his boots steady and commanding, making the chatter around him fade. The young one stopped laughing, watching with curiosity. He stopped beside her, voice deep but gentle, and said, "Ma'am, permission to sit?" She looked up, startled, her guarded eyes scanning his face. Something in his tone was familiar, something that pulled at buried memories. She nodded softly. He lowered himself into the chair across from her, and without hesitation, he reached out and touched her arm, not the scars, but the tattoo. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You carried us. I never forgot." The cafe went still. No one understood. But she did, her eyes filled with tears she had kept hidden for years. She swallowed hard, whispering back, "You were there too?" He nodded, his eyes shining, and for the first time in forever she felt seen, not as a scarred woman, but as a soldier, a survivor, a sister in arms. The whispers in the cafe had died into silence. The same kids who laughed earlier now stared, in shame, their smirks erased, their ignorance exposed. They had mocked what they could never comprehend, the cost of courage, the price of sacrifice. And here, in the middle of an ordinary cafe, two veterans shared a bond carved in fire and, Blood, a bond no cruel word could ever undo. Don't turn away yet, because this is where the story deepens. She told him how she had survived the blast, how the fire had marked her body but not her spirit. He told her about the nights he woke up gasping, haunted by memories that never seemed to fade. They sat for hours, speaking softly, the world around them shrinking to just two souls who understood. For once, the scars didn't feel heavy. They felt like proof. Proof she had lived. Proof she had kept going. Proof she had mattered. When she finally stood to leave, he rose with her. And before she walked out, he placed his hand on her shoulder, turned toward the silent cafe, and said in a firm voice, "These scars you laugh at, they're the reason you get to sit here in peace. Don't ever forget that." His words landed, like a hammer in the still air, leaving no room for laughter, only respect. She walked out of that cafe taller than she had entered. For the first time in years, she wasn't hiding behind her hair. She wasn't shrinking from the world, because someone had reminded her that her scars weren't shame. They were honor, carved into her skin by the price of freedom. And as the door closed softly behind her, the veteran watched with a quiet smile, knowing she would never again sit alone in the shadows. And maybe, just maybe, the people left inside that cafe would carry a new kind of mark. Not on their skin, but on their hearts. The kind that teaches you never to laugh at someone's scars, because you may not know the battles they had to fight just to still be here.